Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It's been a while that I posted any videos, so today I'm going to post this video for the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Previously, I had posted videos on various slokas, and we covered chapter 1 and 2. And today's video, I'm going to give an overview or a summary of the chapter 1. So chapter 1 is titled Observing the Armies. As you know by now that in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna asked Krishna many questions about life, death, soul, and so on. Very deep existential questions, and Krishna answered them, and those answers and questions together form the entire Bhagavad Gita of 700 shlokas. So the first chapter can be broadly divided into 4 major sections. I'm using as a guide Gita Subodhini. I strongly recommend this to all the viewers. Anybody who wants to deeply study Bhagavad Gita should get a copy of this. This is written by His Grace Gaurang Darshan Das, who is the Dean of the Bhaktivedanta College in Vada. A very, very, very useful book for understanding Bhagavad Gita. So, in this, Prabhuji has divided the first chapter into 5 broad sections. In the beginning, the Gita begins with Dhritarashtra asking a question to his secretary Sanjaya. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsava mamaka pandavaschaiva kim akurvata Sanjaya. O Sanjaya, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do in the battlefield? Now this question may seem a bit redundant or illogical, because since both the parties have assembled in the battlefield, and the obvious thing that they're going to do is they're going to fight. So what's the point of asking what did they do? However, this question has signifies something deeper. If you look at the verse Mamaka Pandavascheva, Mamaka, the word Mamaka implies that Dhritarashtra, or it shows Dhritarashtra's attachment to his sons. He has clearly separated his sons and the sons of his brothers. Though as a king, it was his dharma to include all his citizens. All his citizens are like his sons. But Dhritarashtra has kept his sons separate, and he wants to bestow his sons the kingdom and keep the sons of his brothers away. So therefore he uses the word Mamaka, mine. What did my sons do and the sons of Pandu do? And also that question shows Dhritarashtra's anxiety. See, the battle is about to begin, and Duryodhana, both Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra were very ambitious for the kingdom and for the throne. Dhritarashtra is aware that the Kurukshetra is a pilgrim spot. It's a Dharma Kshetra. So that area is charged with positive spiritual vibes. So in some way, Dhritarashtra is fearful of the outcome of the battle because he knows that he and his sons are on the side of adharma and the Pandavas are on the side of dharma. Plus, the Supreme Lord Krishna is also on the side of Pandavas. So Dhritarashtra is somewhat fearful of the outcome of the war. Therefore, he has expressed his anxiety through this question. What did they do? The acharyas tell us that Dhritarashtra secretly was hoping that the war doesn't happen and that there's a compromise. However, he wants the Pandavas to compromise. Because the Pandavas are on the path of dharma, they're nice people. Dhritarashtra was expecting them to back away, and therefore, if the Pandavas back out, then the whole kingdom would go to his sons. There would be no war, there would be no bloodshed. So that was his hope, and hence he asked the question. And that was the first verse, the beginning verse. Also, it's interesting to note that the first word of Bhagavad Gita is dharma. The whole entire Bhagavad Gita is all about dharma, and therefore the first word starts dharma kshetre. Dharma is the first word. In the verse number 2 to 11, we find Duryodhana's diplomacy. Duryodhana is an able diplomat, a great politician. A politician has to be diplomatic. He has to please all the parties, while a person on the path of truth may not necessarily be diplomatic. So in this session, we find both diplomacy and fear in Duryodhana. Fear because Duryodhana perhaps did not anticipate that the Pandavas would have such a big army. Of course, Duryodhana's size of army was bigger, but still he was not anticipating this great sea of soldiers in the enemy side. Then he was also diplomatic because he wanted to ensure that Bhishma Deva, who is the most crucial warrior on the side of Kauravas, in fact, the whole strength of Kauravas was really dependent on Bhishma Deva's abilities. Bhishma Deva had this Ichha Mrityu. He could die when he wanted to, and as long as he didn't want to die, he would be fighting the war, and there was no question of killing him, the enemies killing him. So Bhishma Deva was the greatest strength for Duryodhana. At the same time, one part of Duryodhana knew that Bhishma Deva was partial towards Pandavas. Both Dronacharya and Bhishma Deva were fighting the battle out of obligation and not really out of love for the Kauravas. Their love actually was towards the Pandavas, and Duryodhana knew it. So there was a fear at the back of his mind about this. So the verses 11 up to 3 to 11, we find Duryodhana addressing his teacher. Oh teacher, look at the size of the army on the other side, and your great disciple Drishtadumna has so nicely arranged the phalanx, and he was actually taunting Dronacharya, because you taught all these skills of warfare to your enemy's son Drishtadumna. Now he is going to use that against us. So in other words, Duryodhana was kind of warning Dronacharya, please don't show any leniency towards the Pandavas. This is the moment of truth. This is a crucial war, and therefore do your best. And he also tells the soldiers in his side to protect Bhishma Deva. And then we find that after that, from verse number 12 to 19, first chapter, there is a blowing of conch shells. Before the war begins, the warriors blow their respective conch shells, and Bhishma Deva was the first one to blow the conch shell. And then as soon as Bhishma Deva blows the conch shell, everybody else also blows it. And Acharyas have commented that the blowing of Bhishma Deva's conch shell is similar to that of a pujari. In the temple, you see that the pujari blows the conch shell before beginning the puja. And Bhishma Deva is about to begin puja of his beloved Lord Sri Krishna. So he's blowing the conch shell. The names of the conch shells are given, and each major warriors have their own named conch shells. Here Vyasdeva has hinted that the side of Pandavas is eventually going to be victorious. What are the clues that we get? One clue we get is that Krishna's conch shell is mentioned as transcendental. Divya Shankha. Krishna's conch shell is Divya Shankha. It's not a material Shankha, it's Divya. So that's an indirect way of telling us, yes, that side is where the God is there. So obviously when Krishna is there or Vishnu is there, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, will also be there. So the fortune is on the side of Pandavas. So that's one clue we get. The other clue we get is that the magnificent chariot of Arjuna is described as drawn by white horses. And this chariot is also special because it was gifted by Agni Deva to Arjuna and meant to conquer all directions. So, and also in the 19th verse, it is mentioned that hearing the tumultuous sound of the conch shells from the Pandava side, the hearts of the Kauravas, the sons of Dhritarashtra, were shattered. So that's another indication that the outcome or the coming events in the next few days will not be pleasant for the Kauravas. In the verse 20 to 27, we find Arjuna is observing the armies. Now both the armies have come to the battleground. The conch shells have been blown, and now Arjuna, who is a prominent warrior on the side of Pandavas, he tells his chariot driver, who is none other than Lord Sri Krishna, he tells him, please take my chariot to the middle of the battlefield, because I want to see both the sides. I want to see, especially on the other side, the enemy side, who are the soldiers who've come assembled here in order to fight. Who are these soldiers who've come to please that evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra? I want to see them. Krishna being a Bhaktavatsal, here we see the beautiful quality of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna has infinite qualities. He is most beautiful, most intelligent, most powerful, most knowledgeable, and so on. But the most endearing quality of Lord Sri Krishna is his Bhaktavatsala, his compassion, his ocean of compassion, his causeless mercy towards his devotees. And that's what we see in these verses. Lord Rishikesha draws his chariot and places it right in the middle of both the armies, and Arjuna saw for the first time clearly in front of his eyes every person who was there on the so-called enemy side. And Arjuna saw his father, grandfather, his teachers, his maternal uncles, his cousins, and everybody, almost his entire family, was there on the other side, his enemy side. And Arjuna gets overwhelmed. You see, he came to fight this war. He has fought thousands of wars before. It was nothing new for him. It was just another war. But it was not just another war. This war was different. And why was it different? Because here he is fighting this with his own family. And now he saw face to face all the people with whom he has to fight. And amongst those people were his most favorite people. And who were there? They were Bhishma Pitama, his great-grandfather, who loved him so much and whom he loved so much. He grew up playing with his grandfather, and now he has to fight to kill his grandfather, great-grandfather. And that thought was shattering for Arjuna. Arjuna was devastated to see his most beloved guru, Dronacharya, who is standing on the enemy side, and he has to fight. He has to shoot arrows at the same guru who taught him how to shoot arrows. Now he has to shoot arrows on that same guru and kill him. This whole scene really overwhelmed Arjuna, and he lost his composure. He had a nervous breakdown. His hands started shaking. He started sweating and shivering, and the bow started slipping out from his hand, and he could no longer even stand on the chariot, and he just lumped down on the chariot and put down his bow. And then from the verse 28 to 46, for the rest of the first chapter, we find Arjuna starts speaking now. Arjuna says, he says, "Oh Krishna, I am observing all these people here who are my own family members." He uses the word swajanam. So Arjuna says in this verse, "Drishtve mam swajanam Krishna yuyutsam samupastitam Sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishishyati." Oh Krishna, I'm seeing all these swajana, my own family members, and I can't hold my composure. I'm unfit to fight a battle. I have all these doubts and indecisiveness in my mind. I don't know what to do. And then Arjuna goes on to give reasons why he doesn't want to fight. So there are basically 5 reasons which Arjuna gives on why he doesn't want to fight. The first reason is that he's feeling compassion for not only his relatives but even for the soldiers on the opposite side, because he knew that eventually all of them are going to die. Because Arjuna was a great warrior and he had the confidence of shooting arrows and killing all of them, and he didn't want to do that because they were like his own family. So the first reason is compassion. And the second reason Arjuna gives is that, look, basically in this material world we want to amass wealth, we want to get prosperous, and we want to buy big bungalows and cars. Why? So that we can share it with our friends and family. You see, alone if you are there, you will not be able to enjoy all these opulences. You need someone to share it with. Or even some people want to show it off to their friends and family. Imagine you were alone in an island. You would be riding a Rolls Royce and there's nobody to admire it. There's nobody in that island. What would you do with all your wealth? Wealth makes sense when there is someone to share it with or someone to show it off with. So by the end of this battle, the 11 Akshauni Sena of Kauravas will be wiped off, and there will be nobody left to show off or share with. So what's the point of winning? And the third reason, Arjuna fears a sinful reaction. Arjuna says that the scriptures say that one should not kill one's own family members. And in this war, that's what he has to do. So that will incur sin for Arjuna. So he didn't want to do that. And then Arjuna says, now if all these men folk who've come to the battlefield, they were to be killed, what will happen to the family traditions? Because the elder people of the family, they are supposed to guide the younger generation about the rituals and the family traditions. But if the elder people are gone, who will teach the younger generations anything? So the family traditions are lost. And because there's no male members in the family, the women folk of the family will get exploited. They will be used by unscrupulous men, and therefore unwanted illegitimate progeny will be result of this. So the outcome of the war is pretty ghastly. And finally, Arjuna says, I don't know. When I look at the pros and cons of this whole war, I don't know whether it is better to be victorious, or to die, or be captured. I don't know what is the best option. And this is a very ridiculous statement. It's like a student who goes to the exam. He's about to write the exam and he says, I don't know whether I should write to pass the exam or I should write to fail in the exam. It's like that. You're in the battlefield. Your only aim is to conquer or kill the enemy. But here Arjuna is saying ridiculous things like, I don't know whether I want to be captured or I want to capture them. So Arjuna on the whole is pretty confused. So the first chapter ends with the confusion of Arjuna. This chapter is named Observing the Armies. If you see other publications of Bhagavad Gita, this chapter has different names. Some call it Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Prabhupada deliberately chose this title, Observing the Armies. It's not by chance. The word observing is very significant. Observation is a very important thing in life. You see, that is the cornerstone of many things. How you observe life will give rise to how you think. What you observe influences what you think, and what you think is how you're going to act. So basically your life depends on your observation, whether you observe as a glass half filled or you observed as a glass half empty. There is an interesting story in Ramayana where Ramji is walking through the forest with Mother Sita and his brother Lakshmana, and they were passing through this forest, Chitrakoot forest. And when Mother Sita saw the forest, she observed all the beautiful trees and flowers and the nature, and she was really captivated by the beauty of the forest, and she wondered what a beautiful forest it is. When Lakshmana saw the forest, Lakshmana was in charge of the safety of his brother and his sister-in-law. So when Lakshmana saw the forest, he was looking out for any signs of danger, because that's what he had trained himself to see. So he was thinking, oh, there could be some demons or some rakshasas hiding in these trees. They could be in disguise and they might attack us. And that's how his line of thought was going. When Ramji looked at the forest, he saw some dead branches or dead leaves. And Ramji said to Lakshmana and Mother Sita, look at these fallen leaves. Look at these fallen twigs and branches. They have dried up. They have died. And why is it so? because they have broken their connection from the tree. When the leaf was in the tree, it was green, it was supple. When it left the connection of the tree, it's fallen down dead and dry. Similarly, when the Jivatma, the individual soul, the individual living entity is connected to the supreme living entity, the supreme super soul, the Paramatma, the God, then you are alive. You get nourishment. When you break that connection, you are like the dead leaf. So you see, same forest, but three different observations. Let's take the example of Duryodhana and Arjuna and Sri Krishna. Same battlefield, same army, three people are observing. When Duryodhana is observing, he says, his thoughts are like this: I want to win this war. I want to kill all the enemies. I want to enjoy the kingdom. That's how Duryodhana is thinking. When Arjuna observes the war or the battlefield, he says, I don't want to kill. I don't want to win this war. I don't want to enjoy this kingdom. Now, who is the third observer? That's Lord Sri Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna is observing from above. And what does he say? He says, winning and losing is not important. Do your duty. You have to do your duty, and your duty as a Kshatriya is to fight. Do your duty and leave the result to me. I'll decide who wins or who loses. Doesn't matter. If you win or you lose, it doesn't matter. If you live or if you die, it doesn't matter. Just do your duty. So that's Lord Krishna's observation. So you see, observation is very important, and that's the reason Prabhupada chose the word observing the armies. So this was a very brief summary of the first chapter. And I may perhaps post one more video on this, a little more elaborately, or I might move on to the next chapter. Hope that this was of some use to you. Hare Krishna.